Linda is happy to welcome everyone to the Teaching Connections and to offer a few words about her time as a student at UNI, one that changed her in numerous positive ways. She grew up second in a family of 4 kids, raised by their stay-at-home mom, whose father had been an educator, and by their dad, who had started his career teaching and coaching at the high school level, but then spent the majority of his career as Jackson County Superintendent of Schools, overseeing the some 60 rural schools scattered around the country. Her father was the oldest of 4 whose parents had no education beyond 8th grade. They were farmers, barely making enough income to put food on the table. But her dad had a different vision for himself. So upon his graduation from 8th grade, he was expected to end his formal education and help his dad on the farm. However, her dad convinced her grandfather that he was not done learning. After completing high school, her father was offered an athletic scholarship to play basketball at Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa, about 5 miles down the road from their home in rural Lisbon. Her father lived at home during his college years and walked the 5 miles each day to go to class. He succeeded both in the basketball court and in the classroom. When, as a senior in high school, Linda began to seriously consider where she would go to college, her dad suggested that Cornell, his alma mater, would be a good place for her to continue her post-high school education. Knowing that her folks would be sending 4 kids to college with limited funds available, Linda chose the State College of Iowa in Cedar Falls over a pricier private school. She never regretted that choice, and neither did her folks, because SCI, or UNI, as it became known during her time on campus, proved to be the perfect place for her. The shy Linda became a person who made new friends, joined the marching band, became very active in student government, and graduated with a degree in elementary education. It was about the end of the first semester of her senior year that her dad said to her, "You could not have made a better choice of colleges. This is the right place for you to be." It is their wish that each of you feels the same way about UNI, that it's the right place for you to be. We hope that your experience today will be of benefit to you as you go on to complete your education at UNI and venture out to educate the next generation, a generation that will face many challenges, some of which we are not even yet aware. Just think about COVID and the challenges it has presented to educators. How a pandemic would affect educators was not even on the radar until we were in the midst of it. However, educators rose to the challenge, and we are all grateful for their hard work and continuing commitment. No doubt there have been and will continue to be major changes in teaching methods, but something that has not changed is that teachers at all levels are committed to the task of preparing their students to go out into the world and succeed. Bill and Linda, thank you for your ahead of time for your commitment to face the challenges that you will face as a teacher. It is their hope that you will find the Teaching Connections to be inspirational, educational, and enjoyable. They wish you much success in all your endeavors on campus and beyond. Bill and Linda Tubbs, UNI class 1969. So with that, thank you everyone and welcome. And I will hand over the speaking duties to Dr. Renee Heiberger and Miss Vanessa Hardaway.
Thank you so much. We are so excited to be here with you tonight. Vanessa and I live in 2 different states, and I live in Georgia. Vanessa lives in North Carolina. And so it's just a privilege for us to be able to virtually be with you wherever you're at tonight and have this opportunity to share. We're especially grateful to Lee for all that he did and to help organize this event, and Jacob and Anton and Jim. They've done a fabulous job, and I know that you guys are in for an amazing treat. Also, thank you to the Tubbs for hosting and this event. This is going to be a great 2 days for you, and we're so excited that we're able to help you kick it off. My name is Renee Heiberger. As Jacob mentioned, I am an educator in Georgia. This is my 22nd year. I am an academic coach, so I teach teachers. And I have taught everything from the elementary level up to the middle school level. And then this is my second year as an academic coach. So Vanessa is in North Carolina. I'll tell you in a little bit how we met, but I want her to go ahead and introduce herself.
Greetings, everyone. I am Vanessa Hardaway here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Some call it Fayette Nom. If you've heard of Fort Bragg, this is the home of Fort Bragg. I am in my 24th year of teaching. Prior to teaching, I was a juvenile probation officer, go figure. So I went from drug screening and probation meetings to teaching kindergarten, coloring, staying in the lines, capital and lowercase letters. And now presently I'm fourth grade teacher. So I've been a little here, a little there, and just excited coming from a family of educators. As my sister's a teacher, father's a retired administrator, was a basketball coach. All of his children are educators. My aunt was a biology teacher, cousin was a teacher. So education is what I know. So it's an honor to be with you, and we're excited.
Vanessa and I actually started speaking probably a little over 15 years ago. We taught in the same county and in Tennessee. That was where we were both raised, right around Chattanooga area. And we taught in the same county. And I'm not going to tell the whole story, but basically what happened was we were able to meet up. Her dad worked for the district, and we were able to meet up. And I mean, within the first 15 minutes, we knew that it was going to be a pair that you couldn't compare to. So we have been excited. We've spoken at a lot of conferences and universities and school districts and schools over the last several years, and we're just excited to be here with you. So I'm going to quickly share my screen. Also, before I do that, I want to give you guys a place for you to jot down some notes and all the links that you're going to need tonight, including our slides. So I'm putting it in the chat here now. If you'll click on the tiny URL, it will take you to a Google Doc that you can make a copy, and then that will be your own copy for you to take notes tonight. All the links that you're going to need, we're going to have 2 breakout sessions. All the links that you're going to need are going to be in this document as well. Our slides are there. You can use a QR code, or you can also just click on the tiny URL link for the slides. And then at the end, we'll be talking about each of the breakout sessions as we go along. So we want to start tonight by just sharing with you about striving or surviving. Many of you, we were kind of getting a pulse on the different people that we're going to be here tonight, what level you're at. We have elementary, middle, high school. I believe we have some administrators that are also on with us tonight. And I'm telling you, in what Vanessa and I have seen, and as an academic coach, I'm out in the classroom, we're observing 2 prevailing scenarios. You have teachers who are continually striving for excellence, and they're constantly just kind of trying to keep the ball rolling. A lot of things coming their way, a lot of things coming down the pike, but they're keeping the ball rolling, keeping it going. And then you have teachers that are on survival mode, and they are barely hanging on by a thread. And after the pandemic and the way that we're coming out of this, in this new normal, as we refer to it as, it's just played out with teachers even more, that it's just a daily decision and a daily struggle dealing with the stressors that come. So today we want to focus on, what does it mean to strive or survive? How do we define teacher burnout? What are the symptoms? What are the causes? How can we prevent it? If you're at the University of Northern Iowa and you're like, well, great, but I haven't even gotten in the classroom really yet, we're going to talk about ways that you can prevent it so that you don't become another statistic. And how can you restore that which inspired you to start this journey of education in the first place? So I wanted to share with you some signs that a teacher might need a break. You might relate to a couple of these, or maybe you can check every one of them off on the list and say, yep, got all those. Vanessa and I, we have been in the trenches of all this. We not only speak to you just because this is a topic we picked. I actually wrote my entire dissertation on teacher burnout, and Vanessa and I both have been in places in our career where we were faced with real symptoms of the burnout phase. So we're going to talk about that as we go along with you tonight. But first, I want to talk about, what is the definition of strive? To strive means to make great efforts, to achieve or obtain something, to fight vigorously. As educators, we have to fight. We have to fight to teach. You have time constraints all day long. You have interruptions. Kids are getting pulled out from your classes. You have things that are happening, and you're having just to fight to be able to teach in your classroom. You have assessments you're giving, multiple assessments. I also have seen it to where we have had to fight just to help students to even survive. I don't know if you heard in the news a while back, it was like a couple of years ago, there was a story of a teacher in Tennessee who had a little student in her class who came up to her one day. They did the backpack blessings at the school, and the student came up to her and he said, has that lady come around that passes out SpaghettiOs? And she was kind of confused at first. And then she was like, oh yeah, for the backpack blessings. And she said, no, she hasn't come by this week. She was like, why? And he said, I need some of those SpaghettiOs so that my belly will feel full at night so I can sleep all night long. And so she was just, I mean, it was overwhelming to her. So she went on Facebook, posted the story. And when I tell you, the response was unreal. Everybody started sending her money and SpaghettiOs and different things to get that baby some SpaghettiOs just so he could have a full belly. So sometimes we have to fight for our kids just so that they can survive. And today's education environment, in order to prepare your students for the real world, you find that sometimes you yourself, you're giving out all the time, but you're not taking time for yourself. You're getting nothing in return. And so every day you're working just to keep your head above the water. And the truth is, many teachers don't survive. They're quitting. There's a new term, if you've heard of it, called quiet quitting, where they just simply turn in their 2-week resignation and they say, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to be gone. And if they're giving up, they're walking out, they're leaving the education system. Fabulous teachers are walking away. And maybe you know this statistic, but before the pandemic, 50% of teachers quit in the first 5 years. That was pre-COVID. So I can't even imagine what it must be now. And studies have found that along with air traffic controllers and surgeons, education is rated as one of the most stressful professions. In fact, the only people that make more decisions per hour on a daily basis are air traffic controllers. So today we want to look at some burnout essentials. First, we need to understand the scope of burnout. We need to know the symptoms and the causes and then the prevention. In my research, I've discovered it's an age-old problem. Do you know Christina Maslach was one of the first ones that coined the term? Well, she didn't coin the term, it was already around, but she was one of the first ones that did the major research on teacher burnout, and that was back in the 70s. So we're talking a decades old problem. This is not anything new just because of the pandemic. This has been happening for a long time. But the family dynamics in the 21st century have changed dramatically, making the children we teach completely different than how we were raised and more of a challenge to be motivated and to provide individualized instruction for. So today, what we want to do is we want to start out with the burnout presupposition. And then the burnout presupposition is this. In order to have burnout, you had to have been on fire at one time. So at one time, those of you that are my seasoned veteran teachers and administrators on here, at one time you knew you were called to teach or you were called to be an educator. It may be something where it just kind of evolved, like you didn't really plan on it, but you were in college and then it changed, your major changed. Or you might have known, like me, since the 2nd grade that you were called to teach. I know, Vanessa, you said that you were not, in fact, I know for a fact about you that you didn't want to, you were like, no, I'm not going to be a teacher. Everybody else is teachers. You went the probation officer route.
Well, prior to that, if you really want to know the truth, I saw education, though my family pretty much were educators. I said, this is a generational curse, and I'm going to be the one to break it. So I went to school for business, and I worked in banking for 5 years. So I was in the financial arena for that amount of time to jump right out of there. And I remember days of sitting at the window at the bank and sitting in the back doing some documents going, counting other people's money, going, this is not what I was built to do. And the reality is, when I was a little girl, I think 8 years old, and I had a dream about being a teacher. And I knew then, I said, this is what I want to do. You know, where you line up all your dolls and you play. It was in me, but I said, teachers don't make money. I don't see millionaire teachers. No. So let's go for the big bucks. Let's go for banking. Yeah, that didn't last long. So here we are back at what I knew I was called to do. So yeah, ran from it, and here I am back in the saddle. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So when we look at the definition of teacher burnout, it means that it's mentally, emotionally, and physically spent. As Vanessa she'll talk in a little bit and tell some of her stories, but It's what she says when you are done. You are D-U-N done, not D-O-N-E. It is a D-U-N done. And so you are just done. You have nothing more to offer, no more resources. You're waking up, you're praying for snow in August, and you are just ready. You are ready to just throw in the towel. However, you've invested so much of your time, education, all the things. And so you kind of feel stuck. You feel it's that teacher entrapment where you don't really know what else to do. And so you start to experience symptoms of burnout. So Vanessa's going to talk for a few minutes about what these symptoms look like, because if you don't recognize them, they can creep in real quick. And we both know from experience.
Absolutely. So let's go through a couple of them. First one we hit is a lack of enthusiasm. And I don't know, I think of when you get up in the morning and you go to school and it's like, wah, 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 there's nothing there. Nothing makes your heart flutter. There's no warm. There's no fuzzy. You drive on autopilot. You're like, is the bell, did it already ring? Is it over? So that lack of enthusiasm, there's nothing. There's nothing. You just get up and you go through the motions day by day, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, getting in the car, the commute, walk in, print off the worksheets, good morning, boys and girls, and it becomes a routine. But there's nothing that makes you even say, I love this thing anymore. There's no, it's more like, is it over yet? Right. And you're feeling that way. And if the school bell rings at 7:45, round about 8:05, you're like, is it over? Yeah, we're in the problemville right there. Yeah, so that's number one. What about the physical and emotional fatigue, where you go to bed tired, you get up still tired, and there's nothing that, the things that used to touch you in your heart, even your emotions, you can come to a place where there's nothing. I know for me, I don't know how this happened. I think it started with one video on Facebook of a soldier coming home, and I cried like I was in the room with the family. I'm talking about, shoulders are jumping, that cry, right? And so that touches me. Well, have you ever had something that touched you where it didn't even get near you? Like, you can watch another video and you're like, well, that's nice. Glad he came home. Moving on. Right. So when you start finding yourself where you're just tired all the time, and that's not fulfilling, and then you're emotionally like flatlined, nothing moves you. A picture of a puppy, you're like, another dog. Nothing. Babies aren't cute. Nothing that's cute is cute anymore. Nothing. So that's another sign where you're kind of like getting on the edge there. What about feeling isolated within the school, where you are like in Aloneville? You don't really want to talk to anybody. You just want to get through the day, go in, close your door. If you could pull blinds over your door, if you could put do not disturb on your door, and that's to children as well. Everybody, hey, I showed up for work, but don't come in. No, find another room. Are there empty desks anywhere else? Yeah. And that's being real. Some people say, no, teachers, no, you believe the children are our future. No, I think Whitney Houston said that. I'm done. D-U-N, nothing's there. So you're just like, I just want to get away. You don't even feel like you did anything. Have I done anything to impact anybody's life? And you start reflecting on, why am I doing this? What is this? Like, it's just, and I guess we as educators, we know each other. We know that feel when something's off. We know when it's off. It's almost like I began to understand teaching kindergarten, because those little people, they don't have a big vocabulary to express what they're feeling, what their body's feeling if they don't feel well. But when little Johnny comes in every morning and he's bouncing from wall to wall, under tables, everywhere, let's get this day started. And if little Johnny walks in the door and he says nothing and he goes and lays his head down, you know something's wrong. And so when you go ask that one, are you okay? What's the matter? They can't tell you, but I've seen the little ones. They can't tell you don't feel well. It just happens with the tears. They just start to cry. And so that's one of my signs. If they're acting different, and then the tears come, I just put my hand on their forehead. I'm checking for temperatures. Did you eat? I'm asking a question because I know something's wrong. Now let's grow up a little bit. Let's look at ourselves as adults. Have we ever found ourselves in that moment where we're crying and we don't know why we're crying? We're snapping. We are done. The pandemic put us in some different spots to do some things, and it really tested us in a lot of different areas. And maybe we were handling our stress in a way, not just to mention we're in the pandemic, but then you're trying to teach and learn technology and how to connect with your students. These things push it. And for me, I will say, as far as a team, Renee and I, when it comes to technology and understanding that world, hey, that's your queen over there, Renee. Me, I'll tell you all the time, I'm AA batteries. If it's anything beyond AA batteries, don't ask me. So then you tell me I've got to teach 5-year-olds behind a screen. How does that work? So we found ourselves being in some places where we were like, I'm done. And we know when we get to that point, it's time to start looking at some things. So they come easy, they come small, but those small foxes grow really, really fast. And I just ask you, even as I'm talking now, check yourself, because really, you may find yourself right now with some little spots that you're like, hey, I'm floating down that river. And only we know ourselves. And for I've spoken to teachers on the side before. Renee and I, we love doing conferences like this because at the end we get to meet the people and talk and share. And I remember one time telling some teachers, literally, you may be the only stable place that a child knows. And so for us, have you ever found yourself going in, put on that face because you know somebody in your room or somebody on that bus that's getting off? I hug children every morning. Children I've never taught before, can't tell you their names, but they're coming to my door to say, good morning, Miss Hardaway, and I'm good morning, I'm giving a hug. And for those children, some of us are the only stable place that a child knows. And if that's them, what we find ourselves doing is, okay, pull it together for this one, pull it together for that one. Now, do they know what's going on in our lives? No. Do they know the phone call that you got last night? Absolutely not. Do they know that you're a caretaker? No. Do they know that your children are going through something or something's going on in your family dynamic? Absolutely not. But you know they're coming. They may be snaggletooth. They may, they may have 3 and 4 or 5 different ponytails because they did their hair themselves and they're proud of that ponytail look. But they're coming to you for a hug and approval. Well, for the older ones, they may just say, what's up? But they know you're that stable point. And so for many of us, we tough through that burnout feeling. Why? Because we know somebody's coming looking for us to be their stability. So these are just some signs that we look for to see, am I getting into that range where I need a little help right here?
Absolutely. And we don't have time. With our schedule, we didn't have time for you guys to take it, but we included a burnout questionnaire. If you want to, at some point, I would suggest you take the burnout questionnaire. It's 28 questions. It's just a checklist just to get a pulse on where you feel like you are right now. Because it's interesting the way that the questions are worded. I think that it will give you a good idea. Another one is just not feeling professionally like you're being valued. This can come from your peers. This can come from, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, from the being valued from the students, them understanding all the effort and all the work that goes into you getting just lesson plans done for the week, or especially as an administrator. You're at the top. So who do you have that fills your bucket? Who do you have that pours into you? And it's a lot of times it doesn't happen. It's not there. And so that's another symptom where you start to just feel like nobody even really cares all that I do. Today, we want to also, to go on, and we want to talk about some of the causes. We're just going to spend just a few minutes here because the causes are things that sometimes we can control and sometimes we cannot control. We're going to talk about that in our first breakout session. So sometimes teachers just don't get along. You're put on a team. You didn't really have a choice to teach this a specific grade level. Vanessa knows all about this one. She's taught kindergarten for a long time, and about 4 weeks into school this year, she was told that she would be moving 4 weeks in to the school year this year. She was told, oh, by the way, starting next week, you'll be teaching 4th grade. You won't teach kindergarten anymore. It was not, it was a voluntold. And so a lot of times those types of frustrations happen. You get put on a team, maybe where you don't know, you don't click with with the people that are the other teachers that are on that team. And so it's really hard to have a positive attitude when you have to face that every single day, because as I'm sure a lot of you that are aware, having that strong support system is so important in your life to be able to get through the really rough days. Another thing is doing it all. Teachers struggle because they feel like everything is on their plate. They're having to do it all, especially when they're having to start lesson plans from scratch. As a new educator, a new teacher, I remember I would spend like 8 hours a week just creating lesson plans. And that was only for one subject because we were a team planning. And so the other teachers we each took a subject. So I know all about having to do it all, and it's overwhelming feeling. And so sometimes that causes stress. A lot of times you might have frustrations with the children and the parents. Again, sometimes it's things that you cannot control. Sometimes it's things that you can, where just like you needed to communicate more or something like that. And those are things that you learn along the way. But when you're nearly assaulted, when you're threatened with lawsuits, when you're cussed at, when all these things are happening, those all happened to me, by the way, in one school year, one time when I was teaching in Tennessee. It's very frustrating, and it can lead to negative feelings of negativity in your own life. And then the feeling, as we mentioned earlier, that people just don't appreciate what you're doing for them. And then the last one is allowing the mission to become your entire life. Vanessa says sometimes whenever people don't appreciate what you're doing for them, you feel like you need to go to Hallmark. What do you say about it? You need to go to Hallmark.
Right. You can go to Hallmark, buy your own card, pick out your own card, fill it out, write yourself a note, get the gold crown, stick it on the back of that envelope, address it to yourself, and send it. And when you get to the mailbox, open it like, well, look, somebody sent me a card.
Absolutely.
Sometimes only you know how to talk to you the best way. So sometimes, hey, go buy your own card.
Absolutely. And sometimes you just need to know, hey, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing the best I can. And when we allow the mission to become our entire life, that's when we start to realize that, hey, I'm not having a healthy, balanced lifestyle here. I'm not taking time out for myself. I'm not prioritizing my family, which is honestly the most important, because your family, if you're a mom or a wife or whatever your role is, an aunt or whatever your role is in life, you need to make sure, we're going to talk about that too today, but you need to make sure that you put yourself first. So I wanted to tell you really quickly before we do our first breakout session, they did a study and found they had 200,000 participants in this study, and they found from the responses, it was related to organizational culture. And do you know that they assessed people and asked them what was one of the top things that motivated them to go the extra mile? And money was not even in the top 5. In fact, money was number 8 out of 10 of a motivator that motivated people in the workplace to go the extra mile. The top 3 motivators that they found where employees would do whatever it took, it didn't matter. They were ready, they were willing, they were ready to go the extra mile, were these 3 things. Number 1, camaraderie and peer motivation. So motivation from your peers. We talked a few minutes about that support system, having that support system at work. You need to find your people. If you're a teacher, it doesn't have to be someone on your team, but you need to find someone that you can trust and you can talk to, and you can sometimes just vent and go get some chocolate and tissues, because sometimes you got days that end like that. And that's all you need, is just to find someone and say, listen, I need chocolate and tissue, and then I'll be good. If you're an administrator, you might need to find another administrator that's in your district, someone that you can talk to that understands what you're dealing with and what you're going through. I know that my principal has a group of, in our cluster, that he has a group of administrators, and he'll often tell me about how that, I was talk to my friend, my buddy over here, that's the principal here. And it helps to have that support system. Number 2, an intrinsic desire to do a good job. Sometimes you just have to be self-motivated. You have to motivate yourself. And number 3, I thought was so interesting, it's feeling encouraged and recognized. I don't know if you've ever read the book, How Full is Your Bucket? But it's a fabulous book. We have it linked at the bottom of our page under our resources. And sometimes you just need to know that your bucket needs to be filled, and you need to be able to feel encouraged and recognized. So as we go out into our first breakout session tonight, we want to have you do a few things. I'm going to give some directions. I'm going to stop my screen sharing really quickly because I want to show you. Actually, I'm not going to stop my screen sharing. I'm going to switch it. I do have to stop it because then I'm going to share it again. We would like for you guys to go into your breakout session based on your area of teaching. So we have 3 breakout sessions for elementary level. We have a middle high level. So if you're middle school, high school, you're going to go into that breakout session. If you're special ed, you're going to go into that breakout session. If you are a specialist teacher, so if you're a teacher like art, PE, music, band, that type of thing, you'll go to that one. And then if you're an administrator, you'll go into that one, and then special ed. And so once you go into these breakout rooms, there are directions. Let me share my screen one more time with you so I can show you what I wanted. Let me go to this slide first, and then I'm going to show you what the document looks like, and then we're going to let you guys share out and just have a second to talk to each other. So you're going to have conversation. You're going to ask, first you're going to talk about what are your top 3 to 5 stressors on a daily basis in your role as an educator. So whatever role you have. And then we would like for you to categorize these into things you can control and things that are out of your control. And so there's a Google Doc link. You'll go into your breakout room in just a moment. You'll have the discussion. You're going to have about 15 to 20 minutes, and you will have the discussion, and then you will put your answers into this document. And let me show you what it looks like. Let's see. You'll put your answers into this document. So when you click on for the breakout room number 1, so here's what you'll discuss, and then here's where you're categorized, and then you'll type it into the graph, the chart. Okay. So we just want you to have those conversations. If you maybe introduce yourself, I'm sure a lot of you may not know each other. You might teach in the same district, you may not. And then just spend a few minutes. Let's 6:04. Let's say we're going to come back together around, let's see, what did we say, Vanessa? 20 minutes. Let's do 20 minutes. So we'll say around 6:20.
6:25.
Yeah, 6:25. Okay. All right. So you will click on, you'll be put in they're going to make sure I understand how this is working. You're going to be put in you're going to click on join the breakout session. Am I saying this right? Oh, 5.
Oh,
sorry, y'all. On
5:25.
My bad.
Sorry, y'all.
5:25. Thank you, Lee. So you'll click on the document to fill that out, and then you will go into one of those rooms. And if you go to the bottom, you can click join of the little pop-up window. You can click which one you want to join.
We look forward to seeing your output coming from those breakout rooms. So enjoy meeting each other.
We'll see you in just a few minutes. All right, I want to bring everybody back together. Thank you so much for your conversations. The point of this activity, the reason why we really felt like this was important was so many times it's so easy to get caught up in the things that are happening that we forget to really acknowledge which of these are stressors that are happening in my life that I can control, and which of these things do I absolutely have no control over? And if you don't have control over it, there is a point where you kind of have to say, you know what, I got to let that go. I got to put that to the side, and I've got to focus on the things that I can control. And I know that this is very difficult, especially when it seems like everything is kind of hitting you at once. My husband is a band director in the same county I teach. I teach in it's actually the second largest school district in all of Georgia. And so it's a very large school district. There's a lot of schools, and he's a band director. And, you know, both of us being educators, we'll sometimes talk, and he'll share with me some things, you know, that he's dealing with his band class. He has like 500 students, have 500 band members. And sometimes I'll just have to bring him back down to say, okay, which of these are things that you can control, and which are the things that you just absolutely can't, so you got to let it go. And sometimes you need someone in your life to be able to do that, just to keep it in perspective, because if not, you get overwhelmed. You start to feel like, I can't, this is too much for me to handle, too much for me to deal with. But you guys did a great job. I just clicked on a couple of the links, or I looked in each of the breakout sessions. I wanted to just kind of see, and your answers were on point, perfectly aligned with, these are things, my attitude, that's something I can control. Different things that you felt like, hey, I have control over this. Having students pulled out of my class, I don't have control over that. Yeah, it's very difficult, and it's frustrating when I'm trying to teach a new standard and I have kids that aren't even present because they're being pulled out for another service that they desperately need. But yet I'm required, and I'm going to be held accountable for if they learn that standard. And so those are types of things that are frustrating. And it's during those times where I have found that you have to rely on each other. That's where you have that support system. And sometimes you just have to ask for help. So today we're going to go straight into ways that you can overcome burnout and get back to a place where you feel like you have some control over the stressors in your life.
So one of the first points we talk about is that ask. And sometimes it takes a lot when we know we're on that, headed to that edge where, hey, I'm approaching DUN done. Forget the DONE, I'm done. And I know I'm approaching it. So what do I do right now? Because sure, we have some options. Sure, we can sit there and let it roll on and crash and burn, or we can say, hey, I see that I'm not in a good spot and I need help. And that's where it takes that push from ourselves to say, I need to be vulnerable enough. And that's a big word right there, that vulnerability, especially when we've been in this field a while. And sometimes we feel like we've got to show up like, I got it all together. But we get to a point where, okay, I don't have it all together and I don't know it all. So I'm going to have to ask someone, you know, how do they say it on that game, phone a friend? I'm going to have to ask for some help. And Renee made reference to some chocolate and tissue earlier. That was my lifeline through some changes, administrative changes, curriculum changes, a lot of changes going on. And there, you know, we have a small group table where you have small group meetings. Well, at the end of the day, that small group table becomes a large group table where we grab a box of tissue. Who needs to cry? Get it out, because at least when we're all together, we feel each other and we understand. And then somebody always had some chocolate, Hershey's Kisses with almonds, the nuggets, the gold bars, the Kit Kats, whatever. It was thrown out over the table like we were looking for gold. And we were just, by the end of the session, we had a garbage can right here in the floor. And we had foil all over the table. We got through that session. But in that session, we dump it. And then we ask, okay, anybody got anything on this one right here? I'm dealing with this kind of student. What do you see? If you're a new teacher, hey, this is all brand new to me. Yes, like Renee spoke earlier, I feel like I'm in my first year of teaching, honestly, because I'm reminded, I've been with little people for 11 years. And then in the same year to jump to fourth grade. Oh, I'm a first year teacher all day long. And I'm telling you, I remember when it first happened, going to getting to work earlier to try to plan extra to see what am I doing? And so it was a lot. And I'm grateful that I have some good people on my team that came to my aid. What do you need? How can we do it? So one of the best things to do, if you know you're approaching that area, hey, help. I need help, and it's okay. It is okay.
It is. And I know being my second year as the academic coach last year, even this year, I've had some specific things that were required of me. And I literally I just have never, that's not ever been my role. And so I leaned a lot on other academic coaches from other schools, and I would email and say, hey, I'm doing this. Can you help me? So that really is one thing that takes away some of those stresses. Another thing is to leave the teacher in school. Now, this one, I'm just going to tell you, it is one of those easier said than done, but it is so important. Sometimes you've got to put a close sign on your door and you have to say, my school hours are done and I'm going to go home. My daughter, I have one child, Emily, and she's 9 years old. And when Emily was born, let me say prior to Emily being born, I used to stay at school really late, especially when I switched roles and became an elementary school teacher. I also felt like a new year teacher, a brand new teacher all over again. And I would stay late, sometimes 6, 7 at night. That was nothing for me. And then she was born and I realized you can't work those hours. I had to get home to her, had to get her from daycare. And so I told myself each week I was committed to staying at a certain time. I worked it out with my schedule where I'm going to stay till this time, 2 days a week. And then the rest of the week, I'm going to have to leave at a certain time. And I remember thinking like, there's no way I'm going to get all this done. I'm not going to get these papers graded. I'm not going to get these lesson plans done. But once I decided on a quitting time, do you know that I actually found that I was more productive with my work during that time that I had. And I was able to get more done and all the things got done. And I remember thinking, well, if someone comes to me and says, you haven't done this, I'll just say, I'm sorry, I'm working on it. Nobody ever came to me and said anything because I ended up eventually getting all the things checked off my to-do list. My dad says, he has a quote, he says, wherever you are, be there. And so when I'm at school, I also, that same year that I had Emily, I made a commitment to myself. When I was at work, I was going to be at work. I was going to be a teacher. I was going to pour everything I had into that moment, into that day. But when I checked out and I went home, I was going to commit to being a mom and a wife. And I was going to work at home and try my best to put some things to the side. And sometimes you can't. You got papers that are to grade. You have report cards due. You got to get things done. And I understand that. Sometimes I still bring work home, of course. But what I'm saying is don't let work dominate everything in your life. Allow your conversations as well to be something besides work. Get it out. Vanessa will sometimes we call each other on the way home, like just, I need to tell you about my day. Get it out. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't let the conversations dominate everything, all the good things in your life to where you never have conversations about other things. So you have a life that you built outside of work. What we're saying is find that balance so that you can live that life as well.
The next one is practice your self-care. Do what you have to do to take care of yourself. Take that walk, go to the gym, those things that keep you together for yourselves. Get a massage. I tell you, for me, I know just sitting here listening to Renee, Thanksgiving break, I walked out of my classroom, the last day before Thanksgiving break with a basket of papers that needed to be organized and graded. And so put them on my back seat with my bag and came on home. Yeah, that basket is still on the back seat. I'm talking about, you would have thought I put that basket of papers in a seatbelt. It's been in my car so good. I think there's a print on the car seat. And I remember the day I was sitting on the sofa going, Vanessa, you need to go and grade papers. And I made myself laugh, Renee, like real talk. I chuckled at myself. I said, grade papers, watch The Wizard of Oz. Grade papers, the lion singing If I Were the King of the Forest. There's no comparison. And yet Papers are still in the seatbelt. You've got to do what you have to do to take care of yourself. Now, I can't do that every day because progress reports and report cards we'll be looking for them on Amazon because there will be no grades. But what I am saying is you got to know there's a point where you have to take care of yourself. You've got to get some rest. You need oxygen. There's things that we need to do to keep these bodies moving and to take care of ourselves because we are not our career. We're not. That's what we do. This is the assignment that we've answered the call to. But at the same time, we still got to live. And I remember telling a teacher not too long ago, I said, hey, I'm telling you right now, if something happens to you, the bell is going to ring in the morning. If you're not in the hallway, the bell is going to ring and they're going to find somebody to take care of your class. Now, we may feel your absence, but hey, the ball's going to keep rolling. That sounds really sad, but the truth is, if you don't take care of you, when you know you're getting to that point, hey, it's time to blow the whistle on ourselves. Watch If I Were the King of the Forest. Sit down and get your blood pressure down. Merry Christmas. That's all I'm saying on that part right there.
Absolutely. And on your slides, you'll see, I love this slide I found. Thank you, Pinterest. It talks about the 30-minute rule, and it just says that no matter how busy you are, try and take half an hour each day for yourself. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Some days I don't have 30 minutes for myself until after I put Emily to bed. And then maybe I have 30 minutes before I pass out on the pillow. But sometimes it's even just 10 minutes. It's just taking that mental break, putting down your phone, just sitting. I read some research about the brain, and it said that sometimes if you will take 10 minutes and sit in silence, just tuning into the birds or whatever, if you're outdoors, just letting your brain rest, that can reset your brain and make you feel like you have kind of a recharge or a refresh. But sometimes you need to reconnect, you need to recharge, you need to relax. This is not you being selfish. I think that a lot of times we feel bad, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, you should, because in order to be good for other people, to be the teacher that you need to be, Vanessa uses the analogy about the being on an airplane and putting on the oxygen mask. Who do they always tell you to put the oxygen mask on first?
You secure your own mask first.
And then
that's it.
Yep, absolutely. So sometimes if you're not healthy, you can't take care of anyone else.
No.
Another one is remember why you teach. And I touched on this earlier about knowing since the second grade I wanted to be a teacher. Vanessa and I call it the calling versus the career, because there is a difference. Maybe you got into teaching because a job opportunity opened up and it was kind of a good career opportunity. You didn't plan on it, but it just happened. But the reason why teachers are able to stay is because they have a calling on their life.
Right. And I know I find myself, you ever have those days at school where you get in the car and you go, why do I do this? Why? And you remember that time where you were like, oh, this is why. It's almost like I find it right now. I'm in a wedding planning process, right? And I'm 44 years old and getting ready to get married. Woo-hoo! What about them apples, right? And so there are times, and maybe because I've been single this long and now learning that whole, oh, he gives me butterflies, and then the butterflies go to moths in the windowsill, where you're like, oh, what was it? What? Some of that cologne again. Maybe that was it. I don't remember. But I remember when, the pitter pat and the sweaty palms, and oh my goodness. And now it's like, what? What's for dinner? All right, drop the pick it up. We're watching The Wizard of Oz tonight. That one. And you have to remind yourself, now, what did I like about him? Talk in your deep voice. There it is. There it is. That's what it was. It was your voice. Whichever that thing is. And you have to do that the same with work, where you're saying, okay, I remember the day that I wanted to help somebody's child have that light bulb moment. And I remember there was a parent, when I was teaching kindergarten, I taught her son in kindergarten, and she started out as the room mother, bringing the Capri Suns and the cookies, right? And then field day, she'll help. And then it went from there to, hey, I can make some little games for the kids. Make them, honey, bring them. We don't turn down help. And from there, she got bit. The bug grabbed her. And so then she started looking up educational things and reading things, tools to help. And I'm talking about, she came in that classroom with me. She jumped all in. Next thing you know, she's going back to school and she's like, I want to be a teacher. And I had pom-poms with her name on it. Sister, go get them, because I'd seen her. I saw her passion, her drive. Well, hello, she did it, took the classes, went from room mom to classroom teacher. And oh, I'm talking about a phenomenal, when I say wonderful teacher, and I'm talking about this was just the woman that brought the Capri Suns and the cookies. Man, she became a teacher. She took those kids and she had to drive. She was military, had come out of the military. So she had that bear down, grab it, get it, go. And I mean, became one of the best teachers. I loved it. And I remember when she started heading toward the edge where she was like, I can't do it. And it was her first year and she was getting overwhelmed and she's not sleeping. And she came to my room one day and I could tell she had been crying. I said, what is it? Talk to me. And she was like, I want out. And I said, tell me why. So she came in, we had the tissue and the chocolate. Sit down, tell me why. And so she was like, I want out. I can't. It's too much. I can't. And so she just dumped her, like we say it, she dumped her guts. I said, give them to me. I can handle it. Because what I knew was if she responded to how she felt in that moment, some kids were going to lose the opportunity to have an amazing teacher. And so I asked her and I begged her, I said, please, 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 before you walk away from this career, and really, she didn't have to work. I mean, she didn't have to, but I said, please, I beg you, before you jump ship and abort the whole mission, do me one favor. Just go to one building, change buildings, just do it. Get a different place and just go at it. Give it a year. Tell me what you think, but get out of here. I mean, you know, it's the truth. Every building is not on 100. No. And every building is not for everybody. But I did not want her to just abort mission on her feelings at that time. I said, please, please just go one more place. Well, she took my advice. Grateful. She did it. Went to another school. Went to this other school. It was some work. But I'm telling you, she thrived and she took it and flew with it. And she had some hard kids. But the reason why they gave her many of the hard kids, because she had a way with them. And so she had that drive and that push to get them there. But changing buildings kept her in the classroom. And I'm so excited about it. So when you have those moments where you say, where was I when the butterflies were there? Where was I when the light bulb came on? Where was I when I knew this is what I'm called to do? And sometimes you just have to this is one of those I say with Renee all the time. Sometimes you have to put paddles to your own career, because there's times where you've gotten to the point where you flatlined. Like, is there a pulse? Is it alive? I mean, I'm being real where you're like, man, I don't know. But then you have to shock yourself, get with somebody and let me tell you my story. And once you tell your story, then it awakens. I remember those days. And even if it means a location shift, but it may be, I mean, a low pull, it may be a little flutter, but shock that thing. Tell your story again. Tell yourself your story. Remind yourself, this is why I did that. And then when you remember why you do what you do, then it may change your whole perspective one more time.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes I think we get so busy and so caught up in life. I mean, I feel like I even right now, I'm thinking, we have less than 3 weeks left until our Christmas break. And the amount of stuff that has to be done in the next 2.5 weeks. I know everyone on this call, if you're in a school, you're feeling the same stress, but like, sometimes we get so caught up in being everyone else's anchor that we don't even realize that we're drowning. And so the way that you, Vanessa, were able to resuscitate her and let her give her a new perspective, you know, that is so true. But had you not been there, I mean, I just think, you know, she might have given up, and yet she had a true calling. And sometimes we just have to remind ourselves that all the other things that happen, all the things that are coming down on top of us, we're doing it because of the kids. You know, I often tell my teachers at the school that I work with, nobody can speak your piece. Nobody can smile your smile. Those kids are put into your class for a reason. There is a reason why they've got you, and you are the light in their lives. Just like Vanessa mentioned before, for some of them, you're the smile that they see every day. This is the only hot meal they're getting. You know, those types of schools where poverty is a real thing, they need you. And even though those types of schools sometimes are the most challenging to teach in, it's important that we go back to, why am I doing this? When did I feel called? And what can I do to move forward? The other thing, another one of our things, and it's, listen, this next one, it sounds like, okay, I know this, and you do. You're probably gonna be like, I do this already, but I'm telling you, one of the best things that I do when I feel overwhelmed, and I do it most mornings when I get to work, is to prioritize my to-do list. And when I say prioritize, I literally write like what I want to get done that day and things that I need to do, because I've noticed that when my brain, when I have so many things to do and I've got all this stuff going on in my brain, it's hard for me to focus. I feel like I have, like, you know, where you start one thing and then you're like, oh, let me know, I got to do this. Oh, let me do this. And then you don't get anything done. So one of the things that I have found that helps me is to prioritize my to-do list, get it all out on paper, just jot down everything that you're thinking that needs to be done in your mind, and then prioritize, what do I need to do today? What can wait until tomorrow? What do I need to do, but it can wait until next week? And pick like your top 3 and do like a must do, need to do, want to do kind of list. Even if you have like a, you know, 3 little columns. That simple task has helped me tremendously with organizing my day and getting things checked off my list to get that to-do list done, because that to-do list gets long. And when that to-do list gets long, then you start to feel overwhelmed and stressed out, and it's hard. Then I just kind of shut down. I'm like, I don't know, I can't even focus on one thing. So prioritizing that to-do list. Another thing is sometimes you just have to say no.
Yeah. And that was my lesson learned it the hard way a little bit, but it was a lesson. When you know enough's enough, and there's that point you get to. I remember teaching kindergarten, sure. I mean, little people, germs, hello, right? So what I thought, you know, common cold, you know, I sing and do all these things with my voice. So, you know, you can only take so many. Little Johnny, get off the floor. No, don't cut your hair. Get down off the top of the monkey bars. That's already working your voice. And then, you know, you sing, do whatever. Renee and I speaking and different things like that. Working the voice. So I'm thinking it's a little cold and voice, you know, a little hoarse, but okay, we'll drink some hot tea, we'll pop a little vitamin C and keep it pushing. And man, I remember one day standing up there at that board, and I'm talking about, I was feeling rough. This is pre-COVID. I mean, when COVID wasn't anywhere around this time, I just didn't feel good. Made a dot, and then I had a cough, and that cough went from a tickle to sounding like, I'm talking about, I sounded like, I know I got a deep voice, but I sounded like 3 grown men. I mean, whoa, it was rough. And so I went to the doctor, and she did everything, and she gave me an option. She said, I can put you in the hospital. And I said, no, please don't. She said, here's your options. You can go in the hospital, or you can go home and lay down and do nothing. And I mean it. You don't talk. You don't do anything. And she looked at me. She said, your body has been talking to you for a while and you haven't been listening. She said, so I've got to stop you now before you get stopped. I said, stop me. And she sent me home, and I was home for about 2 weeks. It was pneumonia, had to work itself out, but I didn't know. And when you're physically tired, your immune system is like, nah. And so I had, it didn't matter how many vitamin C's I popped. My body wasn't recharging. There was nothing. And she made me stop. Now, fast forward to last year. I remember, you know, life was just hectic. How did y'all know about new curriculums, schedules running, trying to, you know, be a new fiance and this and that and family. And I had a great aunt in Alabama who was going through some changes, and life was just on roller skates. And I remember one day just went to the doctor for a regular, you know, visit. and sat down. It was after one of those afternoons after a meeting we had, but I was like, what's new? Hello, it happens. And so got to the doctor and got in the room and did all my pre stuff, whatever. And the nurse came in to take my blood pressure, and she took it. And that silence you don't want to hear from a nurse or a doctor. It was the loud silence where nothing said, but it was so loud, like, why are you not talking? Say something. And she said, don't me when it's me on the other line. Me when we're in TJ Maxx or Marshall. Don't me when it's my body. And she was quiet. And she looked at me and I looked at her. And she looked at me and I looked at her. And she just looked at me. And so then she left the room and came back. And she said, let me try your other arm. Tried whatever, did whatever she needed to do, whatever. She looked at me and I looked at her and I was like, whatever. She left the room and she came back this time. This time she had the doctor with her. And so he came in and pulled up his chair in front of me. He said, what's going on in your life? I said, you don't even have time. I said, you don't. And so he said, I can't let you leave. I said, okay, why not? He said, because your blood pressure is at stroke level. So what we have to do is watch to see if it goes down. Scary part about that moment was I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel bad. I knew I had a lot going on. I feel like if you opened my mind and took things out of my brain, I could cover about 2 or 3 different tables. And this is not a weird story. I think we've all had those moments. And he said, I can't let you go until we get this down. So I sat there. He said, you're just going to sit. That's all right. And so they said, we got to watch you really. And I call for reinforcement. I called my aunt who lives in the city with me. And I said, they won't let me leave. And she said, okay. And then she said, I got you. And it began to come down a little bit. And so we had to have a serious talk. You get to those points in life where it's easier to drive by a fast food window than it is to go get you some celery that helps with blood pressure and get you a salad. And because you're on roller skates, y'all, and look at just ask yourself, have you had those moments where you are just literally, the way I described it was I felt like I was just moving through cotton candy. It was like, I was moving, something was there, but I was pushing through. And that moment, and I had to really at that moment, because that was scary for me. And I told my family, I was like, yeah, I had an interesting doctor's appointment today. I told my fiance, and he's like, hello, I didn't buy that ring that's on your finger for all this to happen. What do we need to do? Hello. And so that thing gets really serious. And one of the things we were going to talk about earlier, and I think it was in one of our notes, where you have your support system. And there are times where life can get so hectic, even in your world, that you need to sit down and have a family meeting with your family, because what's going on at work, it's affecting you. And if it's affecting you, it's going to affect everybody connected with you, because you're not you. So saying no affects not only you, but everybody. And when you're at that point, you might not be able to take on that pre-K class at church for Sunday school. You might have to say, find somebody else. Find Sister Ruby, she's chilling. I mean, you know what I'm saying, really? Because even though you can do it because you work with kids, but your answer is no, I can't do it. So when you know your no is no, your no has to be no. And your no, saying no in that moment will affect not only you, but everybody connected to you. So your no is important when you get to that point.
Absolutely. I love this picture because it speaks volumes about how you can't pour, no pun intended. You can't pour from an empty cup. Volumes, get it? Volume, the liquid. Okay. It's late here. It's dark. It's pitch black out here. I don't know what it's like in Iowa, but it is pitch black in Georgia and North Carolina too, I think. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you have nothing left to give, I think we've said this in many ways, but you can't pour from empty cups. So what do we do? Like we've covered things of ways that you can overcome and prevent, but where do we go from here? Where do you guys go from here in your lives? You get off tonight, you say, okay, I want to make some changes. What are we going to do here? So what we want to do, we want to have another breakout session. This is going to be our last one. And this one, I want to just show you quickly what you'll do. It's in your notes, but it's also at on your last page of your notes. If you will go to the bottom of your notes page, and I'm going to share mine so you can see right here where it says breakout session number 2. If you want, I know that it was my fault. The first breakout session, I forgot to tell you on elementary, there are 3 breakout sessions. And so we wanted to make sure that there weren't so many people in one group that you didn't have a chance to talk or share out. So it's up to you. You can either go to the same breakout session you were in last time as far as the elementary level. There's 3 different elementary. The middle high, there's only 1 of you. And then the administration, there's only 1 for you and 1 for special ed and 1 for the specialist. But if you want to go to either 1, 2, or 3, but first of all, you're going to discuss the following questions. What are some ways you already feel like you successfully deal with stress? Like, what are some things you can say, hey, you know what? I already do a really good job of this. And I found it to be successful. How does this help you to keep a lifestyle that's healthy and balanced? And then second, this is kind of something that you'll do on your own. I want you to use the pledge card and to answer the following question. And looking at the things that you can control, the things we talked about in that first breakout session, what is one thing that you want to pledge to create a healthier lifestyle or balance between your work life and your personal life? So it's 5:56 where you are, and you will have, let's say, around 20 minutes, again, maybe 15 to 20 minutes to discuss these 2. When you come back to Vanessa and I, we have one of my favorite stories that Vanessa tells. We're going to end with and close out tonight, and we want to share that with you. And we have a few other points that we want to make, but we appreciate you so much staying with us. I know that you guys have a lot going on in your own personal lives. Thank you so much, those of you that were able to stay throughout this already. But if you would go ahead, click on which breakout session that you would like to go to, and then have that discussion question, as well as working on your pledge card of one thing you're going to pledge to do to change in the next month. All right. I hope that you all had a chance to share out some things that you have found to be successful, as well as just a chance to maybe think and stop and think about something that you can do to pledge that you're going to change in your own life so that you can find a more healthy balance. When Vanessa and I first started speaking, we went to one of our very first speaking engagements was at Rowan State University. It's down here in the Southeast. And there was a teacher who came up to us at the very end, and she said, I just want to tell you both the things that you've said today have really helped me. She said, I teach high school, and they do it like a skit. It's like a talent show kind of type thing. And she said the students run it and they do it. And so they were performing during the skit, impersonating some of the teachers that were in the building. And she said that when they got to her, she said they were sarcastic, they were rude, they were disrespectful to each other. And she said that in that moment, she had an epiphany and realized, this is what the students think of me. Like, this is their viewpoint of how I am. And she said something to us that day that we have never forgotten all these years. She said, I realize after hearing you and Vanessa, and then also experiencing that, I can still change. It's never too late to be who I might have been. And that has stuck with us because, there's something to be said for taking a moment, self-reflecting, and just telling yourself, I got to make some changes, whatever that looks like. Or maybe you're still at the university and you haven't gotten into a classroom yet, but now you're aware of things that can happen. And you say, I want to make sure that I don't ever end up another statistic. And I love this analogy, this picture of these matches, because as you can see, they're all burned, they're all burnt out. And then one takes a step away. Sometimes you just have to step away. That's going to look different for all of us. There's not one quick fix. There's not one thing that you can say, hey, if you do this, it's all going to be better. It's going to look different for everyone, but you find what that thing is that I need to do to step away. Maybe you need to just take a day off and go drive to the mountains, or drive somewhere where there's a lake or there's water that you can just go take a hike, get out in nature, do something with your family, do whatever that looks like. Step away and give yourself some time for self-care. Vanessa is going to close us out today with a story that she had a few years ago who just wanted a hug. Can you hear me?
Got you. I was looking like, okay, you're gonna play. I know we recorded it, but I can just tell it myself. It was one year, little girl came in my room. She came in, I met her family. And so, you know, we're in a different time, you know, everybody has different things going on, different styles, different everything. And so came in, met grandparents and met mom. Mom had a very short haircut. I mean, no hair, but that's nothing different. And her little baby and Kayla. And so I met them. Hi. And so here we are. It was open house, met her, met the grandparents. All righty. And so let's go ahead, fast forward. School starts that next week. And Kayla is stuck to me like glue. Little girl. Everywhere I go, she wants to be where I am. And I understand kinder babies, they miss their mommies. And so they're young and they just want to be in out, you know, I had the speech, come on, you can do it, stay in here. But she just wanted to be, where I ate lunch, she wanted to be there. And I ate, you know, had my duty-free lunch and I was like, thank you, no duty. And so, but she wanted to go and she would cry, but she always wanted to be, so I would let her come eat with me. What's going on? We go to recess. She wanted my attention. I'm talking about Miss Hardy watching. She wanted to play football with the boys and she could try. She one day tried to almost headlock one. I was like, hey, girls, wait a minute, you've got on pink ponytail clips. Be cute and dainty. Honey, she was out there for that ball. And so she's playing, I mean, but she wanted to see, did I see her do it? And, you know, all of this and that. So I was like, yeah. So I noticed she was sweet and she just wanted my attention. And so I remember one time there was a conference that we had to have and her mom came in and I talked to her mom. Didn't really know that her mom was dealing with breast cancer. I said, okay. And so she was like, if she's a little different, you know, going through this right now. Yes, ma'am. All right. So, you know, of course. And that's what I was talking about. When nothing moves you, a puppy doesn't move you, things don't move you. A soldier coming home, there's no tears. But in that moment, my heart was tender towards her. So I knew I had to do it with balance, though. You can't just make your world into this child. But at the same time, I knew she wanted my attention. So we tried to get through it. And she was just sweet. And she took to me and I took to her. And so I remember this one day, I was teaching the Pythagorean theorem, must have been in class because I was teaching and time was ticking. And before I knew it, it was almost time for the buses. I was like, oh my gosh, somebody get your stuff, pack your bags. And I'm sending kids, pack your stuff, get your binder, blah. I mean, I'm directing traffic. And so they know to put their little chairs up and everything. And so got to get those bus riders lined up, y'all, literally. And I'm running traffic and here comes Kayla, arms wide open. Can I get a hug? No, honey, I love you, but you're going to be late. Get on that line. Get out, get out, get out, get out. And I'm running traffic and she wanted a hug. And I didn't give her a hug. And I was like, yes, all right, got everybody where they're supposed to be. Pair pickups gone, bus riders are gone, we're good, moving on. And so, got back to my classroom and I sat at that table, the candy table, where we're supposed to do small groups, but that was our tissue and candy table. And I sat at the table and was sitting there going through some stuff and knocked on the door and as the guidance counselor, I said, hey, what's going on? She said, hey, she had that somber look about her. I said, what's going on? She said, have you already heard? And I said, heard what? And she said, your student, Kayla. I said, what about her? She said, her mom died a little while ago. And this was before school was over. And she was getting on that bus to go home to find out that her mom had passed. And y'all, I have no words. The only thing that I could think was she just wanted a hug. And that's in that first moment, I just said she wanted a hug. So I got myself to a state that I could just, yeah. So I went to the office, got all of her information, and I called and I got her grandpa, and I gave him my regards and my condolences, and I asked to speak to Kayla, and she got on the phone and she said, "Miss Hardaway, my mommy died." And I said, "I know, baby, I'm sorry." And I'm on the other end, I'm done. And but I'm trying to hold it together for her. Talked to her for a minute, and literally after that day, I never saw her again. To this day, I've never seen her again. They were going to New York, I believe, to have the funeral. And the only thing I could think about was she just wanted a hug. And all weekend, y'all, I snotted. And I mean, in that moment, and I remember talking to Renee, and I said, man, sometimes we get caught up so fast in the business of this. It's the business. We get caught up in doing the thing, and we are dealing with human lives. And no, I think the key word is balance. That has become my word, balance, because the balance says, I do what I'm doing professionally and I do a good job, but I don't get so lost in that I disconnect from the human resources side of education. Yet and still at the same time, I don't get so lost in the human resources side that I don't forget there's a work side to it. There has to be a balance. But y'all, I was a mess that whole weekend, and I just never forget. All she wanted was a hug. And to this day, I think about her sometimes and I wonder where she is and what grade she's in now. And she always had the cutest ponytails. And she always looked so good. And I never got a chance to see her again. So I think that's one of the things that keeps what Renee and I talk about this when we're getting to the point that we are DUN done. And I know I was talking to Renee one night here recently. I said, you can get to a point in this career where you have to start looking at the faces, and you have to look and say, who's in this room with me? And what can I give to you in you as the human face? Because we serve so many that we can disconnect from the human side of it and forget that part. And she's my poster child to remember. You can give a hug. It's okay. You can give a compliment. So my encouragement to you, and then I'm going to hand the mic back to Renee, is when you know you're getting to that edge where you're like, I'm done. I am done. Some of the tips that we've given you all, check yourself, do your own temperature, take your own temperature and try it before you walk away. Because for many of you all, you came into this profession with a passion and a drive, and it was there. It was there. I mean, you can question yourself. I bumped my head. This is great. I was never called to do this, but it was there. And if you knew you had that passion and that drive, I don't want a child to miss out on the opportunity of having an energetic, fun-loving educator, because the waves are crashing over our heads, because there's going to be one that needs that hug, and your arms may just be the ones that do it.
Absolutely. I love that story. Even though it's a hard story to hear, it does keep it in perspective for all of us, because you can get so caught up in everything happening on the day-to-day basis that you really lose sight of the end result and why we're really called to teach. Today, as we close out, thank you so much again for you guys coming. Thank you for having us again. And thank you for all your facilitating, your talking and sharing out. This is in your slides, in the slides that we shared with you. Schedule your month with. I just love this. I don't know who Lindsay is, but she came up with this little thing of scheduling your month with. We challenge you tonight, do one of these a month just to keep yourself that fun side of you. And also, that was just to give you some ideas. If you would love to contact or want to contact Vanessa and I, we would love to hear from you. We're on Twitter and there are Twitter handlers. Vanessa has a new book out called The Kinder Chronicles. So you can click that link and it will take you straight to her book on Amazon. It's a fabulous book about her stories from her kindergarten class. On your notes page, we also provided you with some books and texts if you like to read. Those are really easy reads, but they are fabulous books. There's one specifically for administrators. If you don't feed the teachers, they eat the students. It's great. I've read that book as well. But thank you again for allowing us this opportunity to share with you all. And we wish you the best of luck and everything over the next 3 weeks. Get to Christmas break, and then take some time, real time for yourself this holiday season. Thank you again.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful. I sincerely appreciate everything that you had to say. It was truly awesome. For everybody that's been here, thank you so much tonight. Tomorrow, same time, same place, if you will, the same link anyway. And so we'll hopefully I'll see all of you again for part 2 of the Tubbs Teaching Connections. Thank you again. Have a good night, everyone.